The goat is not reacting to the cross in any way.
In my adventures making videos about Geoff, I came across many super interesting and super crazy stories about him that couldn't make it into those videos. So here are the weirdest and funniest stories in the lore of Geoff Ramsey. You guys remember Haunter, their ghost hunting show? Well, Geoff seemed hellbent on making that show and catching ghosts. You ever wonder why? Well, it all started all the way back when Geoff was a kid living in Florida. And when he and his parents came back from the theater, he had an experience that changed his life forever. Because when his parents headed to the kitchen, Geoff walked over to his room. And when he passed the living room, he saw what looked like an Indian woman sitting on his chair. Living in the rural South his whole life, he had never seen a person like her before and had a hard time articulating what she looked like. All the doors were locked, so there was no way she could have come in. So Geoff, startled and confused, asked, "Hi, are you looking for my parents? Do you want me to get my parents?" But the woman said nothing and just stared at him. And Geoff again said, "My parents are in the kitchen. Do you want to speak with them?" But the woman just kept staring at him. And Geoff got this intense cold feeling and was overcome with a sense of unrelenting dread. And Geoff, getting scared, desperately asked once more, "Do you want to see my parents?" But the woman didn't say a word and just continued to stare at him. Now, Geoff started to feel menaced, like he was in danger. So he screamed for his parents and ran into the kitchen. And when they came back to the living room, the woman was gone. Geoff never saw her again, but the experience stayed with him his whole life. And this is what started his belief in ghosts, which would eventually lead to Achievement Haunter. Ooh, spooky, right? So, was this a ghost? The pessimist inside me wants to say no, but the problem is that this was so long ago, and Geoff moved out a couple months later, so he can't really conclusively say either way. However, Bernie did suggest that they make an episode of Haunter in that house. So if the show ever comes back, maybe we can get some answers. But how about you guys? Do you think this was a ghost, or just some lady who broke into their house? But now for a more lighthearted story. When Rooster Teeth first started making merch, it got insanely popular, selling thousands of DVDs, shirts, and all that good stuff. Which is great, but it was also an issue, because they had no idea what they were doing back then. They didn't really know how to run a high-volume merch store that got thousands of items coming in and out. So when they had to ship the items, they would bring all the packages to the post office, find a mailbox, and just start stuffing it full of packages until they couldn't fit anymore. And they'd be like, "Alright, that one's full, let's find another one." And that's how they would send packages, just ruining everyone's day by stuffing mailboxes full to the brim. Which is not at all how you're supposed to do that, but this was so early on, they didn't know any better. But then, they found a post office that was downtown that had a mail chute so deep, it felt like it went down forever. So they'd drop a package, then it would fall, and fall, and fall. Then finally, it would hit the bottom. And they were like, "Oh, we can fill this." So they constantly came back, shoving tons of packages down the chute. They'd be like, "Oh, we got hundreds of packages to ship? Just shove them down the chute." And they'd just throw all their packages down it, leaving the post office employees to have to deal with it. And that's how it was. They would just come back over and over again and do it all the time. But then, one day, when they were throwing more packages down the chute, all of a sudden, a mailman came running around the building, yelling and screaming at them. And they freaked out and were like, "Oh, run, 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 go, 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 go." And they jumped back into their car and drove off. And they were like, "Okay, we can't hit that one for a while." So they had to go to different post offices, but none of them could get filled like the one downtown. So they kept finding themselves getting pulled back, but they didn't want to because they were worried about the mailman catching them again. But finally, they said, "Okay, we have to go back to the downtown one. It's the only one that can take all our packages. It's worth the risk." So they planned to make another drop. And when they were driving there, they were like, "Alright, let's do this. Quick, in and out. We get there, plant the goods, and take off. They won't even know it hit them." So when they arrived, they were like, "Go, go, go, drop the packages, go, move it, go." And they quickly started throwing packages down the chute. But as they were filling the chute, they heard something from around the corner. It sounded like running and then yelling. It was him! And they were like, "Oh there he is! Scatter!" And the man was like, guys, what are you... Guys! What the hell are you doing? And they were like, we're sorry. We just need to send our packages. We'll do it somewhere else. We won't come back here again. And the guy said, no, you idiots. We want you to send your mail here. You're just doing it like a bunch of morons. Instead of dropping thousands of DVDs down a chute and then running away, use our loading dock and just hand them to us like normal people, you idiots. And they were like, oh. And that's the day they learned that loading docks existed. So the last story is a bit of a touching one, because there was a moment where Geoff might have left Rooster Teeth. All the way back when they first started the company, it was only a nights and weekends thing, and they all still had day jobs. But eventually, one by one, they all decided to leave their jobs for Rooster Teeth. But Geoff had an especially hard choice, because at his job, he was offered vice presidency. And Geoff was so happy about this. Being from a really poor family, barely graduating high school, he never would have dreamed of getting a job like vice president of a company. So he happily accepted, knowing he'd be set with a well-paying job for the rest of his life. But there was a catch. They told him that if he wanted the job, he had to leave Rooster Teeth. They said it was dividing his attention, and if he wanted to be vice president, he had to stop making that red versus blue thing. So now, Geoff had a decision to make. On one hand, the vice president job would have set him up for a rich, comfortable life, and he'd never have to worry about living in poverty again. And on the other hand, Rooster Teeth was his passion, but he didn't know if it would last. Tomorrow, Rooster Teeth could be a successful production company, or they could all be bankrupt. Everything about Rooster Teeth's future was so scary and unknown, but it was what he loved doing. It must have been a really terrifying decision to make, but in the end, Geoff refused the job, quit, and stayed with Rooster Teeth. It wasn't an easy process though, because some people took his departure very personally and said he wasn't welcome at the company anymore. And when he got home, he cried because he was so scared that he had made the wrong decision. But years later, here he is now. Instead of being vice president of what's now a very rich company, he's the guy who laughs so hard he poops himself. So those were some short stories about the adventures of Geoff. Let me know if you guys want to see more. I've accumulated so many of these stories in my notes about everyone at Rooster Teeth. So, I hope you liked it. Okay, bye.
What?